Circuit Court Clerk with us. Kenton, our State Representative for District 64. Allison, our Fort Mitchell City Councilwoman, Allison. And that's all I was able to check off with my eyesight. Please tell me I didn't, hopefully I didn't forget anyone if I did speak now. Well, thank you all for being here. We appreciate your support as always to our club. And just real quick, as always, just note that we have several of copies on each table of minutes from the past few. As you know, she has been a fighter for each one of us, all the taxpayers in her term as treasurer. And I know that she has the character and the values to lead us into the state auditor's office. So please give a warm welcome to our friend Allison Ball.
Does this still work okay? A little bit? Okay, wonderful. Well, it is wonderful to be with you. I love doing women's clubs, and this one in particular is a special place in my heart. You have done a phenomenal job. This whole region has done a phenomenal job at supporting women in office. You've done this for years now. You've set a great gold standard for the rest of the state. So thank you for being a place that really does support Republican women in involvement and even running for office. You have done it. You are an example to everybody. And it's just wonderful to be with you. I'll tell you a couple of things that are neat to know. Some of you know this. It's just neat to know when I'm with a women's group. When I first got elected, I was the youngest woman in the country elected to a statewide office. It's not true anymore. It doesn't last forever. It was true for about 3 years. There's a lady who ran for office somewhere else who now has surpassed me in that role. But this will never change. I'm the first Kentucky constitutional officer to give birth while serving in office when I had my son Levi. And I'm the first one to do it twice when I had my daughter Marigold. So those are in the record books. Nobody can take those away. Those are still there. They will stay there forever. So those are kind of neat to mention when I'm with women's groups. I always, when I get the chance to thank you for the honor of serving you as state treasurer, it has been a tremendous honor to serve you. It's been a privilege. I have loved doing it. I have been a watchdog of taxpayer dollars in that role. That's what I always say to people, is that the treasurer is the watchdog on the front end. The treasurer makes sure that what is paid by Kentucky is legal, is constitutional, is correct. And if not, then it's my job to step in and stop it. And I've done that. I've stopped embezzlement. I've stopped fraud. I've stopped expenditures when they're illegal. I was very excited to stop the governor when he was using KSP, so using taxpayer dollars to stop people from going to church. I've taken that role very, very, very seriously. And I tell people, if you want to know what I will be like as auditor, just look and see what I've been like as treasurer, because I say the auditor is a watchdog on the back end. They both are watchdogs of taxpayer dollars. You need both. You need that frontline eye that stops it if it's not correct when you get an invoice in. And then you need that eye in the back that says, once money has been spent, make sure that it was used correctly, that people are complying with the law, the processes are correct. And if not, then it's my job to make sure people are held accountable. So I was a prosecutor in Eastern Kentucky for several years. I think that is a great addition. So having been a watchdog as treasurer now, I know how to do this job. And then having been a prosecutor, I also know how to make sure people are held accountable. So I'm ready to go. I was a bankruptcy attorney in Pikeville, actually for a number of years as well. So I am ready to go. I've got those pieces in place to protect those taxpayer dollars, to do what you need me to do in that role. And I want to tell you something in particular that I think is important for you to know. This is something that I have done as treasurer, and this would continue in a certain role as auditor. This is important. This is something that is actually serious. It's happening in America right now, and you need to be very aware. Some of you probably know a little bit about this, but you may want to have a refresher. And something I have been very active in combating is something called ESG investing. And if you know what that is, could you kind of raise your hand so I got a little bit of an idea? Okay, great. So this is a room that like half the people at least have heard of it. You know what it is a little bit. I'm going to give you a primer on it real fast. When I first got elected state treasurer, I remember going to state treasurers meetings, and those do exist. State treasurer meetings are across the country, bipartisan meetings. And I remember going in there, and I started to hear about ESG investing. And I thought, this is academic, this is a novelty, this is just something to fill up time at a conference. That's what I thought. Like, nobody would actually ever do this. And in the last couple of years, I've seen this become very aggressively pushed. It's been pushed by the Biden administration. It has serious support from global corporate individuals, so it's getting a very, very strong push. And what it does is it changes the way that you invest. So once upon a time, investing was always about getting a good return, right? Some of you are retired in this room, you're already receiving your pensions. You know that people invest to make sure that you can retire when you're through with your career, right? That's the primary purpose of investing, particularly pension dollars. You invest for return. You make sure you're earning money with your money. Well, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance, and it says that the goal is not to invest for returns, it's to use that money as leverage to reward or punish companies and to push certain political and ideological outcomes. It is a major deviation from what the standard is about investing for returns, and it has some very dangerous implications. So for Kentucky in particular, I have been a pushback against this in a very aggressive way because it has targeted the environmental part. Has targeted the coal industry and the oil and gas industry in Kentucky. And I'm from Eastern Kentucky, like you just heard. I'm 9th generation from Floyd County, so I'm deeply rooted in those mountains. I've had many family members who are in the coal industry, who've been in the oil and gas industry. I know a thing or two about this, and those are still signature industries in Kentucky. We still need them. We need them for accessible energy. We need them for inexpensive energy, and America needs them. So it's not just Kentucky's interest. America needs it as well. So I have been pushing back against this, and about a year ago, thank you to the members of the General Assembly who are here because you are the ones that made this happen, I pushed to get a bill passed that we call the Fossil Fuel Boycott Bill. And it said that if you are a financial institution and you are boycotting the coal or the oil and gas industry, so fossil fuels, you're boycotting them, you won't do business with them, you're really pursuing that E part of ESG, then Kentucky is not going to include you in our pensions. We're not going to have a government contract with you. We're not going to use you in our investments. So those are very serious measures to push back against the E part of ESG. That is now the law of the land. So thank you, Kim, both Kims. Thank you to the Kims who are here. Thank you to both of you because you made sure that happened in Kentucky. That happened last year. I remember my grandmother got up like 5:45 a.m. to watch me on Fox News. We released our list, and we released our list of 11 institutions that we determined were boycotting the fossil fuel industry according to Kentucky law. And Matt Fry's here. Matt's a good Northern Kentucky employee on my staff. He worked very hard on that as well. This was a team effort to make sure we were thorough and we did this the right way. Now I want to give you an example of how serious this is and how we were sure we were right and what we were doing on this. We had one particular bank that, and they all did similar things, but as one, I just want to give you an example of how serious this was. There's one bank that right now on their website, so they're on this list, right now on their website, they say that there are only 4 things they won't finance, no matter what, only 4 things they won't finance. One is human trafficking, so that's good, they're not financing that, that's the right thing to do. Child labor, I also agree with that, I think they should not finance that. The destruction of World Heritage sites like the Taj Mahal or Stonehenge, or putting a parking garage over that, they won't do that. And the 4th thing they list is they will not finance coal companies. So they have equated coal companies with child labor, human trafficking. That is the same to them in their minds. And that has serious implications. If you want to know what the world would look like if you wiped out the oil and gas industry in America, you wiped out the coal industry, you can look at the country Germany. Last year, they took austere measures to protect their energy because they've really bought into this, and of course there's a war going on in Europe and that impacts it as well, but they have really bought into this E part of ESG. So in Germany, you can look this up, in Germany last year they had a run on scented candles because people were literally using them for light and heat in their homes. They actually have put restrictions into how many showers you're allowed to take in Germany. In some cities, you're limited to 2 showers a week. They actually had this huge media push where they were saying you actually only need to wash about 4 parts of your body. They actually were pushing this in the newspapers and news media in Germany. They were saying only about 4 parts of your body really need to be washed. I'll leave it to your imagination to figure out what those 4 parts are. But this is where they're at right now, and they've been limiting public sinks, that you can't use hot water in public sinks to wash your hands. No heated pools. They've been turning off the lights on billboards after 10 o'clock. These are things that are actually happening in Germany, a developed country, because of an aggressive pursuit of the E part of ESG. We do not want that to happen in Kentucky. We don't want that to happen in America. We need to make sure that we're reasonable and we're sensible when it comes to energy. You don't need to do crazy things like this. So I've been pushing back aggressively against that in this last year, this last session. Thank you to the Kims. This last session, there was a bill passed that made Kentucky the strongest anti-ESG state in the nation. So we are protecting our investments, we are wise with our investments, and we're not doing very political, ideological, aggressive things to wipe out industries that we need. And I'll tell you, I've been in the New York Times twice last year as hit pieces. They've been critical about me twice in the last year. And I feel like you're probably doing something right if the New York Times is going after you. So this is something that I've been proud of, I've been aggressive on, I've been strong on, making sure we're protecting our investments. And this is important in Kentucky too, because our investments, our pensions, our state pensions are underfunded. And they're on the path to solvency. There's a lot of work that's been done. The members of the General Assembly have been very committed to making sure the money's in there, so that way they have the money they need. It's like paying a mortgage on a house, doing it the right way. So they're on the path to solvency, but you don't need to play around with those investments. You need to make sure you're getting good returns. You don't do silly things. You make sure you're wise with your money. So this is something that I've been proud as treasurer to stand up for, to fight for in a sensible way. I've become one of the leading voices. Kentucky's one of the leading voices in the nation on this. Our AG, who's running for governor, has also been one of the leading voices on this too in the nation. He's been dealing with it from the legal end, because there's a legal aspect, and there's an investment aspect. So we both have been dealing with this to fight back against this. So this is something I'm proud of, and I tell you this too, not just to talk about what's been happening and what you need to know, but this also has a significance in the auditor's office, because the auditor has a pension oversight role. So this is work that I can continue. I can make sure there's compliance. We're doing the right thing in Kentucky on this issue. We need to get the next Republican treasurer in there too. Mark Metcalf is ready to go on this issue. He's informed. He knows what to do. He knows how to continue this fight. So we need to make sure. I know I'm talking to the choir in this room, but I want to encourage you. These are real issues. Sometimes people think of these constitutional offices that they're very discrete issues that they deal with, and it's true they do. But there are some that have major impacts. And this is one of those that has a major impact. So from top to bottom, Daniel, Mark, me, everybody's running, all the Republicans are running. Even the Ag Commissioner actually has some implication on this, because ESG has been affecting agricultural policies as well. So this has far-reaching implications. We need to make sure we are ready to go, top to bottom, all Republicans. And I know you're going to help us drive that home in the next 15 days. But I want to encourage you, this is one issue that you need to be informed about, you need to be able to articulate it, and need to know what races actually have something to do with that issue. So that's something you need to know, and I'll tell you something else that I think is valuable to know for the auditor's office. Earlier this year, the front page of the Lexington Herald Leader, which I don't recommend reading generally, but there was a front page article that was worthwhile. Earlier this year, they talked about something that we let them know about. And it was about the Western Kentucky Relief Fund. So when those Western Kentucky Relief Funds were started right after the tornadoes, almost 2 years ago now, when those funds were created, I began to keep a close watch on those, because I'm the treasurer. And I can see the bank account. I can see the money coming in, I can see the money going out. We had generous people from all over the world that donated funds to help people who were impacted by the tornadoes. And then later, when the floods happened in East Kentucky, the same thing happened again. And once those funds were created, I began to ask questions and say, hey, we need to have some safeguards in place for these funds. We don't need a governor's GoFundMe account. We need to make sure that we're doing this the right way. We're protecting those funds. They're donated dollars, not even taxpayer dollars. And I asked for some guardrails for these funds. And I asked the Public Protection Cabinet right away, because that was the group that was in charge of distributing these funds on behalf of the governor. And I asked them, hey, can you audit these funds? I think there needs to be a regular audit of these funds, because we need to make sure they're going where they're supposed to go. And I got a no thank you from the Public Protection Cabinet. We've got it in writing. We actually had an exchange back and forth. And they said, no, we don't want to do that. We feel good about where this money is going. We don't need to have any oversight of these funds. We're doing a good job, essentially is what they were saying. Well, last December, the Public Protection Cabinet asked the Treasurer's Office to deliver about 10,000 checks, the amount of $10 million to them, which they were then going to distribute with a letter from the governor. They were going to distribute these funds to people that they said were impacted by the tornadoes in Western Kentucky. So we delivered the checks to them, they then mailed those checks out. Immediately, we got phone calls to the Treasurer's Office saying, hey, I got this check for $1,000. I don't know why I have it. I was not impacted by tornadoes. We had people that lived in northern Kentucky who called us, who had gotten checks. So they were like, we're not even in the region. There's no way we could have been impacted by these tornadoes. So it confirmed my worst fears. We had over 200 people call us and say, hey, I don't know why I have this check. And these are just the people that told us. So I don't have any idea how many checks from the wrong people who just cashed a check. I mean, as hopeful as I am about human nature, I'm also realistic about human nature, and I know that there are probably some people that cashed that check who weren't supposed to get it. So we had over $200,000 that we know went to the wrong people. That confirmed my worst fears that these accounts need to have guardrails, they need to have oversight, and they need to have an audit. So I began discussions with the General Assembly, saying, hey, can you put some guardrails in there? Thank you again to both of you. You all enacted legislation that put guardrails in there, and Auditor Harmon just recently said that his office is going to conduct an audit, but it's going to take a while to do it, so you need to have somebody ready to go to make sure that those funds are being used the way they're supposed to, and they haven't all been spent yet. You know, almost 2 years in, and there's still money that was donated for the tornadoes in western Kentucky. I think there's still some even for eastern Kentucky floods that have not been spent yet. So you need somebody who knows a thing or two about making sure that that money goes where it's supposed to. So I am ready to go to make sure we're protecting those dollars. We audit those dollars. They go where people need them. They were supposed to go to people impacted. They don't need to sit in the bank account. They need to get out there and they need to help the people that are supposed to go. They don't need to be sent to the wrong people in northern Kentucky. They need to go where they're supposed to. So that is something I want you to be aware of, because it's something that I was talking about long before I said I was going to run for auditor. So it shows you I'm ready to go. I've got my eye on what's happening. I've got my pulse on what needs to be addressed. And I'm ready to go to serve you, to protect those taxpayer dollars, protect those donated dollars. I think the Team Kentucky Fund also needs to be audited, because it was set up in a similar way. We need to make sure those dollars are going where they're supposed to. So I am ready to go fight on your behalf, making sure we're protecting taxpayer dollars, doing what we need to do. And those are a few things that you can remember about the auditor's race. Now with that, I want to say just briefly, I don't always have a lot of time, so usually it's just like, I'm going to tell you about my race so you can remember it and we're done. But I want to give you some encouragement about the top of the ticket, because that's usually the question people ask me. They say, hey, you get to travel around, you've got your ear on the ground, you know, like what's really happening on all of these races. And I feel very good about all of our races, and I feel increasingly good about the top of the ticket. And I'll tell you why, because that's what people ask me, like, what's happening at the top of the ticket? So I want to encourage you, in these next 15 days, we have just slightly over 2 weeks. And if you're somebody who's going to do the, I know it's not technically speaking voting early, but it's absentee voting early. If you're going to do that, like any of those, whatever you're doing, you may have less than 15 days. So I want to make sure that you are maximizing these days that we have left to tell the people that you go to church with, tell the people you work with, tell your neighbors and family. I really believe that it makes a difference when we are talking to other people. You know, we can have ads on TV all we want to, and that's a great thing to do. I'm about to go on TV too, where we've got these ads, we're ready to go. But there is nothing better than having somebody you know talk to you about a race. Like, there is nothing more effective than that. I have people all the time say, hey, I'm not really that engaged. I don't really know that much about politics. Can you just tell me who I should support? You give me some reasons, explain it to me why. And so your voice is going to make a huge difference in the next 15 days. You are going to be able to inform people that otherwise would not be that informed. I know we're in a Republican area, but you really have a tremendous opportunity to make a difference. And I want to encourage you about that top of the ticket, because that's the one people are like, hey, I feel good about everybody, but I'm not sure about that one. You know, we see polls that show Bashir up, and we've seen a thing or two now about polls. Polls always underestimate the Republicans. They always underestimate the Republicans in Kentucky. They probably do it nationally as well, but we know they do it in Kentucky. I remember the first time that I ran, they told me that I was up 2, and I ended up winning by 22. So we've learned a few things about these polls in the last few years, but I'll tell you, there's a poll, the most recent poll on Daniel Cameron has him down 2. So that is a huge indicator that we are the upswing, and Bashir is under 50. So when you're an incumbent that is under 50, that spells trouble for an incumbent. So that is significant. We've got an incumbent who's under 50. Daniel is, according to the poll, this most recent poll, he's down 2. And Bashir has been pretty much the same for the last several months. So people know who he is. They've made up their mind about him, generally speaking. Like, he's not a newcomer to them. They've learned who he is. They know who he is. He has been, for the last several months, he's been about stationary. He's not gaining. He's been where he's been. The person who's been gaining has been Daniel. Daniel has been moving up in the last little bit. So I have sensed that when I've been out in the field, out and about. I can tell he's the one who's got momentum. And a lot of these undecided voters have been Trump voters. They're people that have voted for Trump in the past. So they're the ones that are likely to break Republican when it comes down to it. Like, they may say they're undecided right now, but when it comes to election day, those are the ones that are likely to break it. You don't need many if you're down 2. You're down 2, you're within fighting distance. You're so close. And so I want you, when you leave here today, I think that's an important responsibility for you. I'm going to send you out. I'm deputizing you. As you leave from here, this is an important message to encourage people that you're around. Because some people may ask you, like, hey, I really like Daniel, but I'm not sure if he's going to. They may say that to you, and I want to tell you, be enthusiastic and encouraged. We are so close, and I want to encourage you to encourage people around you. We are almost there. We saw 4 years ago, we saw a loss by 5,000 votes. That is so minuscule across the state. It area is probably the area where 5,000 was lost. So you all have a tremendous opportunity in the next 15 days or so to really spread the word, encourage me. Please tell them about my race. You tell them my race report. You know, we need to make sure, I feel good about my race, but I know we've got 15 days to make sure the job gets done. You're key to that. But I really want to encourage you to be encouraged about this top race, that we can win everyone. It's never happened in Kentucky history before. We've never had a sweep of all 7 constitutional officers be Republican. This could be an historic year for us. It'll make the lives of the General Assembly a lot easier if you have a Republican in the government. You can have a good nodding here. You can actually communicate and get things done if you've got people that you can work with. So we are so close. It is an honor to be with you. It is a joy to be with you. I always love coming up here whenever I get the chance. This particular women's group is one of the strongest women's groups in the state. And I know that you get the job done. Like, I've known a number of you for a number of years now. And you've got work to do for the next 15 days, but we can do this. We can get this done. And the wind is at our backs. We just need to make sure we stay focused and spread the word. All right, with that, I know our food's not here yet, so if anybody has a question, I've run through a bunch of stuff fast. We can talk about more things. If anybody's got a question, please
I would
ask
like to
away.
say something. Remember when I traced your family history
I
down
do.
to
Yep, I got
George
it.
Washington's friend? That was, what, 10 years ago? A long
No,
time?
about 4 years ago, I think. Not quite as long as that, but yeah, about 4
Okay.
years ago.
Then
Yeah.
the second thing, my husband and I were at dinner, and there was a young guy sound asleep at the table with us, and that was your brother, who was your driver. He had been, I can't tell you how many counties.
Yes, he worked hard.
He worked very hard.
I have a younger brother he's 13 years younger than I am, and he was jumping in there, and yeah, he did a great job, and he was sound asleep. Yes. Just catching him up. He is a younger brother, so he
Yes.
might fall asleep.
I think it was nice that he did that.
Thank you. He's a great brother. I tell you, you can remember him in your prayers because he's having surgery this Wednesday. His appendix ruptured. Like, not to get into a whole lot of detail, but yeah, he had a scare a few weeks ago. So they've been treating the infection, and then they're going to remove his appendix. So we're praying for him, and you all pray for him too. He's a great brother, and get him back in fighting fit shape so he doesn't fall asleep. He's got to get that appendix out. Yeah, thank you. We've known each other a long time now. Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, I have one quick question.
Yes.
What is your top priority when we get you elected into the auditor's office?
Yeah, great question. So for me, top priority is making sure those West Kentucky and East Kentucky funds, we know where they're going, we know where they're supposed to go, where they've gone. That is a top priority. It is important to find out what's happened and then expose anything that's been done wrong. And along those lines, the Team Kentucky one as well. I do have a top of the list as well, and that's the JCPS situation. So I know that it's a different part of the state, but I'm sure you're aware of it. They had a fiasco beginning of their school system in Jefferson County. Their school bus was a disaster. In fact, it was so bad they actually canceled school for days on end. Other places around the state got their kids picked up and taken home without a problem or much of a problem, and Jefferson County didn't handle it at all. They had to close for several days. So it's been almost 10 years since there was an audit performed on them, and I'm ready to go to do that. I think that needs to be done. I think the bus situation is just the tip of the iceberg we need to look at, but I think we need to have a full audit of JCPS. And they're the largest school district in the state, so I think it's important to make sure that they're doing things right, because in a sense they're a model to other areas as well, because they're the largest one. So those are two big tasks right out of the gate that I want to make sure we're keeping an eye on and we're doing it right. And like I told people, I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. My little 5-year-old Levi was left on a curbside for hours on end, or didn't get home until 10 o'clock at night. I would be besides myself. I'd probably have to be in therapy right now if my little boy had that happen to him. So I just know that this was a horrible experience for his parents. It should never happen. Should never happen again. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed right out of the gate, right away. Hey, before I sit down too, I think they just brought my food. They brought your food too. Before I sit down, I do want to tell you something that is good for you to know about the treasurer's office. Something that that came along with me because I practiced bankruptcy law before I was treasurer was a heavy emphasis on financial literacy. I think it's a great thing for a conservative to be focused on. It's actually a great way to even teach conservative principles because it's about money management. Being smart with debt, I think we wouldn't have as much debt in DC. We thought about that. Everybody thought about that in a structured way. So I pushed to get a bill passed, which got passed, that made financial literacy a high school requirement. So that is now the law of the land, and I'm proud of that. And Northern Kentucky has been a champion on that issue for a long time. Matt, that was one of the things we were going on to deal with in my office when we first came on. Julie Pyle has done a lot of work on that one. The current Audit Commission, which is housed in Treasury. Jennifer Inman, she's from this region too. So that's something that you all have actually had a big part of. You may not realize it, but you all have been a model to the rest of the state on financial literacy. So we coached your people the whole time to help work on financial literacy. And Kentucky is now a model on financial literacy for the rest of the nation. We have people that call us all the time to see what we've done on statutes and how we've implemented things. So that's something I think to be proud of. And your region actually had a key part of that, making a difference in that area. So that's something I'm proud of in the Treasurer's Office that got done. I returned over $174 million of unclaimed property while I've been in office. If someone believes in property rights, that's something else that I'm very proud of. It's a record of any treasurer in office. So, Mark Metcalf is going to have to, he's got a good record to try to beat. I hope he beats it, but, we try to run up the numbers as much as possible and make sure people get their property back to them. So I always tell that too when I get a chance. It's a good thing for you to know about in the Treasurer's Office. Missingmoney.com is where you can find unclaimed properties if you want to check that. It sounds fake, but it's not. It's real. Missingmoney.com is a national database that Kentucky participates in. So those are a few things that are just good to know even about the Treasurer's Office that I've been able to accomplish and just helpful for you as you talk about things when you leave here today. You talk about all the great things that you've learned. So with that, if there's any other questions, please ask away. Otherwise, I want you to enjoy your lunch. Yes, John?
Don't have a question, but I do have a statement.
Okay.
And that is, thank you for letting me film you today, because the films that I do at my own cost. I edit at my own cost, and I place them on my own YouTube channel and Facebook channels, 2 of them, which have better than 5,000 people that see them.
Wow.
And many more on YouTube. And the reason I do them is because of candidates like you who come to Northern Kentucky and ask for the help. And I'm going to tell you something very important. I've run for statewide office 3 times, won once from Northern Kentucky. We have to get out and help our candidates because we forget sometimes that they depend upon us. Get out and vote. Get your friends to vote. Get your churches to vote. Get all of your lady friends to vote. God bless you, and thank you for coming up and allowing me to film you for godly principles. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, bon appetit.
Thank you so very much for being here with us today, and I tell you, I don't think anybody in this room had any doubts that you're the right woman for the job, but if they did, they should be erased by now, right? So, thank you so much. You all enjoy your lunch and dig in. I'm going to keep talking per usual.